You're looking at a massive infrastructure project. The concrete is cured, the pumps are installed, and the physical structure is finished. But contractually, this project is in a stalemate. It is built, but it is not yet complete. This is the friction inherent in the closeout phase. A facility can be fully operational and technically sound, yet remain contractually open and unclosable for months. The project remains open because the employer is still holding the retention money. Until specific closeout criteria are satisfied, these funds remain on the ledger rather than in the contractor's bank account. Under the FIDIC 1999 Red Book, handover is not a single event, but a rigid, multi-stage sequence of legal transitions. Moving from construction to final payment requires applying subclauses 10.1 and 10.2, distinguishing between greenfield and brownfield site conditions, and adhering to the strict requirements of the defects notification period. Failing to follow these exact mechanisms transforms a finished build into a liability, leading to delayed payments and indefinite defect obligations. This chart establishes the mandatory chronological sequence for the closeout phase of a FIDIC contract. The shift in control occurs here, in the transition between the time for completion and the issuance of the taking over certificate. This marks the end of the construction phase. Subclause 10.1 dictates that the taking over certificate is the point where the employer officially assumes the operational risk and the insurance burden for the assets. This certificate is only issued after passing the mandatory tests on completion under Clause 9, proving the facility functions strictly to the specification. While minor outstanding tasks may remain, they are only permitted if they do not interfere with the safe and practical use of the works. The issuance of this certificate changes the financial status of the project immediately. The date on the certificate stops the clock on delay damages, ending the contractor's exposure to penalties for late completion. It also triggers a cash flow milestone. Under subclause 14.9, the contractor is now entitled to the release of the first half of the retention money. The taking over certificate serves as the formal boundary between the contractor's execution risk and the employer's operational risk. This unified transfer of risk is straightforward on a greenfield site, an empty plot of land where construction happens in isolation. On a greenfield project, the transfer is linear. Once the work is done, subclause 10.1 can be applied to the entire project footprint at once. Brownfield projects are different. These involve working within active environments, like expanding a refinery while it remains energized. These environments require staggered handovers. Sections of the work must be integrated into operations while other areas remain under construction. Subclause 10.2, taking over of parts of the works, provides the legal mechanism for these partial transitions. This allows an employer to take immediate use of a specific component, like a pump station, while the contractor continues working nearby. If the employer uses any part of the works before a formal certificate is issued, it triggers a deemed taking over. At that moment, the responsibility for the care of that physical part passes to the employer by default. This also forces a financial adjustment. A proportional amount of the first half of the retention money becomes due for that specific utilized part. Managing these live environments requires strict boundary control and clear protocols to ensure insurance coverage is maintained during the transition. Without the demarcation provided by subclause 10.2, partial handovers lead to operational conflicts and disputes over who is responsible for newly discovered defects. Returning to the timeline, we see the phase that follows the taking over of the works. This is the defects notification period, or DNP. It is a one-year performance phase triggered by the taking over certificate. Under subclause 11.1, the contractor is obligated to finish any outstanding minor works and repair any defects that arise from poor workmanship or materials. If the contractor fails to respond to these notifications, the employer has a remedy under subclause 11.4. The employer can perform the repairs themselves and deduct the cost directly from the contractor's remaining payments. While physical repairs are happening on site, the contractor must also manage a significant administrative requirement. This is the final closeout documentation. The pack includes as-built drawings, manuals, and final certificates, requirements that must be met to release retention money. Physical completion doesn't equal financial discharge without them. The engineer withholds the subclause 11.9 performance certificate until every manual and drawing is approved. The issuance of the performance certificate is the final administrative act that authorizes the release of the second half of the retention money. The DNP is an active period of performance, requiring the contractor to reconcile the physical state of the site with the documentary requirements of the contract. We can test these mechanisms with a practical scenario. An employer begins operating a specific pump station to manage system pressure 3 months before the rest of the project is finished. No formal taking over certificate has been issued for this station. When does the defects notification period begin for this specific pump station? Under subclause 10.2, the employer's use of the station constitutes a deemed taking over. The 365-day DNP for that station starts on the day it was first used. It runs on its own timeline, independent of the completion date for the rest of the project. Physical use of the assets creates a contractual fact that overrides the original project schedule. This brings us to the conclusion of the defects notification period. Once all defects are corrected and all documents are submitted, the engineer signs the performance certificate. This document signifies that the contractor has fulfilled all obligations under the contract. This certification authorizes the final payment, returning the remaining retention money to the contractor. In the FIDIC Red Book, a project is finished when the physical state of the facility is matched by the completion of the administrative record. Managing clauses 10 and 11 correctly ensures that the transition from construction to operation leads to a clean and final financial discharge.